Today we are talking all things high-end Christmas decor. So I've compiled a list of 50 decor items that I DIY'd or thrifted, 10 new and 40 old. We've got wreaths, advent calendars, so many ornament ideas, wall decor, shelf decor. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Kicking off this video first with an ornament idea. So Pottery Barn every year releases new special ornaments, but just one ornament can cost you upwards around $20. So when I saw this Acorn cluster ornament, I knew I could create it for basically nothing because I had all of the supplies already on hand. To start, I used these 3 Easter eggs and I just spray painted the bottoms white. If you have already white Easter eggs, you can just skip that step. And then you just want to find 3 pine cones that are similar in size and shape. So the first thing I did with these is I just kind of made a small cut in the middle of the pine cone, so then that way I could push down the remainder so it would be able to slide into this painted Easter egg bottom nicely to give kind of the silhouette of an acorn shape. I added hot glue to the inside of each of the Easter egg bottoms so that way the pine cones would stick together. And then now it was just time to add our yarn. Starting out by just tying a knot in the yarn and then hot gluing that down to the bottom of each of the Easter eggs until it's completely covered. Just repeating that process until all of them are completely covered. And if you take a closer look, the top of the pine cones have a kind of metallic or shiny appearance. So I decided to take this glitter glue that I picked up last year for Christmas and adding that to the top of each of the pine cones. Then now taking my twine, I'm just going to again tie a knot and then hot glue that to the top of each pine cone. Gathering them all at the top once completed and tying that in a knot. I also made little twine bows, as you can see in the inspiration here. And I think you have a super similar look to the Pottery Barn version, but this cost me essentially nothing. Next up, we will be making an advent calendar. So Pottery Barn has this really beautiful lit glitter house advent calendar, but it's just about $150, which is just a little bit out of my price range. So when I was at the thrift store, I saw this huge wooden house that was kind of this like lavender color, but I loved that it had lights that poked in from the back. So it was initially $15 and then I had 20% off of that. So I thought this would be worth the gamble to see if I could make this work for an advent calendar for my family this year. I started out by just removing all of those metal stars and then unclipping all of the lights from the back so it would be ready for sanding and painting. Because these galvanized stars were just hot glued on, they actually popped off quite easily. So after removing those though, it kind of created this dip in the middle of where they used to be. So I took 120 grit sandpaper to each of the areas that had stars previously so it was nice and smooth. The next thing I did was I took some spray paint to each of the windows just to give them a more kind of festive feel instead of the dark metal. With everything sanded down and the windows painted, it's just time now to prime the piece. So I went in with a Dollar Tree roller brush and some primer that I already had on hand. And that's a great tip to save even a little bit of money. Get these sets at the Dollar Tree because they're so much more cost effective than going to a hardware store. In between coats, I wanted to make a little wreath for the top, so I found this kind of sparse garland at the bins. So I grabbed 2 sprigs together and combined them to make a wreath for the top. I pre-drilled some small holes on top of each of the windows, adding small dabs of hot glue to each pin. And that is so these little red bags that I got off of Amazon can hang from something. For just about $25, I have a really substantial piece of Christmas decor that I can always add more to later, but I'm really happy with the end result for this Christmas season. The direction that I wanted to go in this year for Christmas was definitely more modern than I went in previous years, and a lot of the inspiration that I found came from Crate and Barrel. For example, I love these Leanne Ford ornaments, but a set of 6 of them will cost me just about $45. So I thought we could try to make this for a lot less. One thing I happen to have a lot of is metallic spray paint. So I started out by spraying all of these ornaments down with some metallic oil rubbed bronze spray paint while the spray paint is a bit bit tacky still, I'm going to add a dusting of baking powder. Once that kind of is all dried and solidified, then I'm going to wipe off the excess. Then I'm going to go in with a different metallic spray paint and repeat that process over and over and over again until I get the desired result. I actually had all the supplies on hand, the ornaments, the baking powder, and all of the metallic spray paints, so this project actually didn't cost me anything, and I think these look so perfect for the theme that I'm going with this year for Christmas. Now let's work on some Christmas artwork. So one thing I loved from this last drop from Studio McGee was this print here, but of course it's sold out and you can only pay like $100 for it on Poshmark or Mercari. So I thought we could try to come up with something similar for a lot less. To start, I found both of these oval frames at my local thrift shop for 75 cents. And for one of the frames, I wanted to add some music notes. So I found both of these sheets separately at the bins, and I'm just going to trace out a section that I like to put in the smaller of the two frames. And for the frames, I decided to also paint those black, as that will be closer to the inspiration. For the tree picture, I decided to go on Canva, see what they had, and I found this one that I really liked and I thought would be perfect for the bigger of the two frames. So although my pictures are a lot smaller, I think they're so beautiful and just the perfect little accent for some shelf styling. Another ornament idea is to make some sweater ornaments. So to start, I found 3 styrofoam balls at the bins, and some of them were a little misshapen, but that was okay because we're gonna cover them with this sweater. The sweater also came from the bins, and it's one of those sweaters that's just like itchy when you wear it, so I never wanna wear it, so it's the perfect thing to kind of repurpose. I started off by just cutting off the sleeve sections from the sweater, and I was able to get about 3 ornaments in each sleeve. Starting out by just pushing the styrofoam ball into one of the sleeves and then cutting off, allowing me to have a little bit of excess though so I can tuck it into the top and bottoms. Taking the bottom of a paintbrush to just kind of hollow out a section there so that way it wouldn't be super chunky at the top and bottom, and it would kind of be nice and flush with the styrofoam ball. I added a little bit of hot glue to that hollowed out center and then just pushed down with the paintbrush so that way it could just stay nice and put and secure. In order for me to hang these, I needed caps, so I just took some caps from ornaments that I'm not going to be using this year and hot glued those down to the tops of these now sweater ornaments. All that's left to do now is add some pretty ribbon, and I think that this is a really great way to just use something that I already had, and I plan on making another set of 3 of these using the other sleeve of this sweater. But for the center section of the sweater, I contemplated just making it into like a sweater vest and then wearing something underneath of it so it wouldn't be so itchy, but I decided to actually make it into a stocking. So first thing I did was I flipped the sweater inside out, and then I kind of cut out a silhouette of a stocking shape, and then I'm just going to have the good sides facing together so the bad sides are going to face out, and I'm going to sew all around that perimeter section there. For the top, I wanted to just kind of have it be open so it was going to fold over, so I'm just going to sew this remainder top section as well. This sweater cost a whole $1 at the Goodwill bins, and I was able to create 6 sweater ornaments and 1 sweater stocking for just that amount. And I think that that is a really good way to make use of something that you already have. Another ornament that gets weirdly expensive on these high-end websites are picture frame ornaments. And one thing you can almost always find at the thrift store are small little picture frames. So as some of you might know, my dad passed away this past June, and this will be our first Christmas without him. So I wanted to take a picture from my baby album and just make a black and white copy to add it as an ornament on my tree. I simply cut that picture down to the appropriate size, and then I needed to add a hook to the back of the picture frame so that it could hang. So I took the cap of another ornament that I wasn't using and then just super glued that to the back, added some pretty Christmas ribbon, and this will be one of my favorite ornaments on the tree this year. A decor item that is frequently used in high-end decor is nutcrackers, and you can usually find these in all different materials, shapes, and sizes at the thrift store. So for example, I found these crystal ones that are tapered candle holders, but I saw on Crate & Barrel's website, they had these ornaments. A set of 5 of them will cost you $30. They are quite small, but I thought we could probably find something similar at the thrift store. So I found 2 of these wooden unfinished nutcrackers for just $1 a piece. All I'm going to do is drill a small hole through the top, and then I'm going to add a nail so I will be able to add the twine in order to hang it from the tree. This is a substantial ornament and it was so cost effective. Another decor item are also those ceramic houses. So I shared this in my last video where we kind of talked about finding these little village houses, and if they're not the right color, it's no big deal because you can just obviously spray paint them. So I did that with these, and I went with this shiplap spray paint. But for the ornament version, I found these at the Dollar Tree and I thought they would be perfect. Again, drilling a small hole through the top, adding a hook, and it's the perfect addition to my Christmas tree this year. But my favorite element by far has to be the florals that Pottery Barn carries during the holidays. They are so beautiful, they look so luxe and high-end and quality. So the next time you're at the thrift store, and I want to share this because I almost missed this bag, is whenever you see these bags of florals, go through them because every now and then you will find a hidden gem. So this potted plant I bought from the Studio McGee line last fall at Target, and I love the pot and I love the stems for fall, but I thought, why don't I just change out the florals, keep everything the same, the branches, the height is perfect, but I just want to switch out the actual foliage. So I ended up finding that bag that I thought was just basic scraps, but I think it's supposed to be maybe cedar, and I'm going to save the purple leaves for next fall. I'll place those in a bag and I'm just going to swap these out for Christmas. And I think it's such an affordable way to just get so much more usage out of a piece of decor without having to buy a whole new potted plant, spend another $40 at Target, right? So this bag only cost me $1, and I'm actually going to do this to not 1 but 2 of the Studio McGee pots, and I think that this is a really fun way to save some money and get a high-end look on a budget. It is coming to us from Pottery Barn, and it is this ceramic and wood bell ornament with a twine ribbon. And the last time I was actually at Dollar General, I came across this set of 2 bells for just $5. So the bigger bell I'm going to do something different with that I'll show you just a sneak peek of, but the smaller bell I thought was the perfect size to make this ornament. And then to hang it, I ended up just using the twine that these bells originally came with because that was similar to the inspiration from Pottery Barn. Now for the wooden piece that was going to go on the inside of this bell, I didn't have any scrap pieces of wood that would be this size, but I did have scrap driftwood in my stash. So I decided to choose the longest one that I had, and I just hot glued it to that center prong that the bell was originally hanging from. What was nice too is that metal inside was kind of weak, so I was able to kind of manipulate that driftwood piece to be directly in the center very easily. And then the last thing I did was I just took my lighter very carefully and I just burned down those fibers so it was nice and smooth. And because the other bell was so big, I just decided to make it into some shelf decor, so I just removed that top hoop and added my own, and this is the end result. In my last Crate & Barrel video, we were kind of decorating for fall, and I wanted to make a faux fur blanket because while I was at Crate & Barrel, they had these beautiful faux fur blankets, but they were so expensive. Usually when you're at the thrift store, this is kind of what you find. But when I was in the fabric section, I looked at the dimensions and I thought this would be perfect for a blanket because I'm just going to face these 2 separate pieces that were basically the same size, and I'm simply just going to put them together. So to start, I'm actually going to face the good sides facing together and the bad sides facing out, and I'm going to pin along all of the sides except for about half of one of the sides, so that way I'll be able to flip it right side out. After turning it right side out, I just needed to hand sew that remaining side there, and that really wrapped up this project. For $10, I have a beautiful, modern, cozy blanket for the holiday season. So last year, Pottery Barn had these trees here and they were so beautiful, but again, quite costly. And a new product I saw for this Christmas season were these lit faux twiggy tree in burlap for $149. So I'm always looking for either picks or something that I could DIY so I could light this up and turn it into a tree. But then I found this burlap tree here for just $5.14. And when I tested it in the store, it didn't work. The lights didn't work. So I just brought it home and I changed out the batteries and it worked perfectly. So an easy fix. I hide the pack behind it and it's the perfect little styling moment on any credenza or dresser that you might have. One thing I like to use Pottery Barn's website for, just because they don't usually have them in the store, are the wreaths. And you can find really beautiful wreaths at the thrift store, at the Goodwill bins, that just need a minor tweak or two. So for example, I found this really beautiful pinecone wreath. A couple of the pine cones had come loose, so I just simply hot glued them back on. I may go in and add some cinnamon sticks or a bow as we get closer to Christmas, but for now, I think it's just beautiful on a budget. Even if you don't find a wreath necessarily, but you find a really pretty garland, that can be easily transformed into a wreath. So I found this pine garland and the pine felt very realistic. So I'm just going to take this hoop form from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to kind of wrap this garland around the wreath form, and then I'm going to hang these bells that I picked up from HomeGoods for $7.99. And within a matter of 10 minutes and just about $10 in, I have a really beautiful wreath for the back of my front door. But of course, you don't have to make it into a wreath. You can leave the garland as is. So for example, I found this beaded garland that looks really modern and really pretty at the Goodwill bins. I also found this clip garland that lights up. So just to make it feel a little bit more festive, first I'm going to test it, make sure that it works, place some batteries inside of there. I also found this berry cedar garland for just $1. So we're all in with this garland, just $2. And I think I can display either some Christmas photos or I could display Christmas cards for the season. I'm just simply going to zip tie these two pieces together. I'm also going to add additional cedar that I had found at the bins just to hide the battery pack and make it easier to hide the hooks that I hang them from. The next ornament project is coming to us from Crate and Barrel, and that is to make these berry and pine filled ornaments. So to start, at the thrift store, I came across this huge bag of clear ornaments for just $2. As I was opening all of the ornaments, I noticed one of them had some blue filling already inside, so I just decided to remove it so I could start fresh, and I'm going to make a set of 8 of these. So the first thing I did was just removed all of these caps because I'm actually going to cap them with something else that I'll show you guys in a little bit. But now it's just time to prep the ornaments for filling. So it's helpful to have a cup for the ornament to kind of sit on top of and a little bit inside of, so that way you just have a little bit more flexibility when you're filling these. And the first thing I'm going to fill it with is this faux snow from the Dollar Tree. It's helpful to just cut a slit actually at the bottom rather than open the top because it makes a lot less of a mess. And believe me, this stuff is messy. With the snow all filled, now it's just time to add the greenery and the berries. So I ended up finding all of my greenery and berries and things like that at the thrift store and paid about $1 for each of them. So that is a really affordable price point. So I had 8 ornaments total, and I decided 4 of them would be strictly greenery and the other 4 were going to be berries mixed with a little bit of greenery as well. I ended up adding about 3 to 4 stems of the greenery in each ornament, and then for the berries, I found that it was helpful to just kind of coil it around a little bit, and that's just because it makes it a little bit easier to fill. And I just kept repeating that process in both sets of these ornaments until they were completely filled. And you guys might remember that I found these beautiful ornaments and I stuck them in a thrifted brass bowl, but I really loved the caps of these and it felt like such a waste. If you can't even see them in this bowl, they should be better displayed elsewhere. So I actually stole the caps from these ornaments and I placed them on our DIY ornaments to get it to be as close as possible to those Crate and Barrel inspiration ornaments. And one thing that I noticed is this is always how I used to previously hang my ornaments, on those traditional kind of paperclip looking hooks. But on every high-end home decor site, when they're displaying their Christmas ornaments, they are almost never using those hooks. So they almost always use ribbon or twine or suede ribbon or something like that. So going forward, I think that's what I'm gonna do as well, just to give it a more elevated look in the end. One of these ornaments from Crate and Barrel is $8.95, and I was actually able to make a set of 8 of these for less than that. It's coming to us from CB2, and that is these really beautiful and modern marble swirl ornaments. I ended up thrifting this pack of 15 gold ornaments. Now they are glass, which I think might have affected the way this project turned out. So I did want to mention that these are glass, they are not plastic. But what really sold me on these was the shade of gold because it matches my kitchen cabinetry pulls perfectly. So the first thing I did was I just grabbed some kebab sticks and attached them to the caps of these ornaments. I also added some frog tape just to make sure they were nice and secure before we hydro dip them. So I tried a couple different methods of spray paint. I first added this white gloss spray paint and then black over top of it, but the end result is just not really what I was looking for. It ended up being really clumpy. I think that gloss spray paint was just a bit too severe for this project. So after that, I just dumped that water, started fresh using only the black semi-gloss, and that worked out really well. What I love so much about this project is that every ornament is just slightly different, but you get an overall similar effect. For each of these ornaments, I'm continuing to use the same water with the same spray paint sprayed to the top. I'm not adding more spray paint or anything like that. I'm just continuing to use the same mixture until all of them are complete. So out of the 8 that I tried, I would say 6 turned out really well. I took them outside and sealed them so they would stay nice and protected, and then I brought them back inside once the sealant had dried, and I just decided to add these caps on instead just to further give it a more modern look. And also I think I'm going to add some suede ribbon to the top of these just to really amp up the modernness of this DIY project. But I love how these came out, and it's definitely something I recommend you guys try. So if you've been following this channel for a while, you guys might remember when I found the Red Lobster wreath for $5.99. And the only thing I really did at the time there was I just removed that lobster, and it was already like a million times better, right? So with the leftover florals from that bag that I didn't use to make my new arrangements, I'm actually just going to kind of feed these into those gaps. I haven't done anything with this wreath up until this point, and normally I do say stay away from hot gluing florals into wreaths just because it's kind of messy, and then you're really like solidifying what that wreath is going to be. But like I said, I haven't done anything with this wreath up until this point, so I decided hot glue would be a good option here. Plus zip tying these little stems would be an absolute nightmare. So I'm just going to fill in all of these gaps with this leftover cedar, and already I feel like I'm at a good place. But then I came across this beautiful vintage looking bell for just $4 at the thrift store. Now, if you follow high-end home decor, you will know that last year these were so trendy, and I think they're trendy again this year as well, but they are oftentimes really expensive. I know Pottery Barn sells a set of 4 of these for like $69, and while I don't have 4, I just have 1. I was actually intending on placing this on my tree, but I thought it would be a better fit to just place it on the inside of this wreath just to give it that really like Christmassy feel. And for just about $11, I think this might be one of my favorite projects for Christmas. So this inspiration came from Pottery Barn. These are actually kind of affordable, I would say, even for Pottery Barn. I came across these ones at the thrift store and they were only 50 cents, but I knew I would have to spray paint these a lot to get the look that I wanted. So I opted for these Dollar Tree ones instead. Before painting them with that glittery mixture, I did decide to spray paint them just once with some champagne colored spray paint that I will link in the description box down below for you guys. For the glittery mixture, I found this glitter glue at the Dollar Tree, and I mixed the silver and the gold colors together so that way it kind of had a similar look to what I saw on Pottery Barn's website. So to apply this glue, I just did so using a small paintbrush, and then I let those dry. I was able to create a set of 6 of these as well, but instead of $29.50, I did it for just $5. For the next DIY ornament, we are going to be making a plaid ball ornament, and I love these ones from Pottery Barn, but they're $12.50 a piece, which is not the cheapest ornament in the world. So to start, I ended up finding this foam ball at Dollar General for $2.50, and the first thing I'm going to do actually is just take some frog tape and just tape that top section off there before adding my hot glue, because I didn't want the hot glue to disintegrate that top piece. So I had some suede ribbon in my stash, and I'm just going to apply a small dab of hot glue to the top of the center center of this ball, and I'm then going to attach the knot piece of my suede ribbon and let that kind of fuse together. So you might remember I found 2 of these plaid napkins at my thrift store for just 50 cents, and I'm just going to take a rubber band and just kind of ruche the fabric around the ball. I love this sort of ruched quality that these ornaments have, as well as the overhang of fabric. I think adds a really nice overall texture. Next up, if you've been following this high-end dupe series, you'll know that I particularly love going to the high-end stores to get inspired by how they're styling things, if they have a bowl, what's inside the bowl, how is it styled on a coffee table, and so forth. If you watched my Pottery Barn Dupes video, you might remember this really beautifully shaped glass bowl. So I ended up picking that up. And then also from the Dollar Tree, I grabbed these gold stems. I ended up only using one of them. So this is a really affordable project. I really loved this Luxe bowl at Crate & Barrel, but it was just a little bit out of my price range. Just the bowl itself is $100, and then the stems were also extremely expensive. So I decided to make my own faux snow just using some Epsom salt, and I also picked up some of these crystal gems from Dollar General for $2. And then I'm just going to kind of strategically place these stems inside the faux snow just like they did at Crate & Barrel. The thing that I really loved about that Crate & Barrel display is when the light caught on those stems, it gave a really beautiful reflection, and I thought placed in a glass bowl would only further enhance that effect. And I really love the way this project came out. It only cost a few dollars to make, and I think you get that luxe look on a budget. To start, this inspiration comes from Pottery Barn. They are each $9.50 for the larger pine cones, or the picks are just $4.50. So I decided I was just gonna go in my backyard, find some pine cones, and then I do spray mine down with an alcohol-based solution just to kill anything that might be living inside. And then I let those dry before adding the glitter glue. So this glitter glue actually came from Dollar General as well. But as I looked up more images from the inspiration picture, I noticed that theirs had so much more glitter than mine did. So I decided to add a lot more glitter using just dry glitter this time and just kind of shaking it on, and then I shook it off to remove the excess. Like the Nutcrackers and the little houses, deer statues are seemingly a trend that is here to stay for this holiday season, and they do come at a pretty hefty price tag. So I'm always on the lookout for finding a cheaper alternative. And usually what you find at the thrift store are these kind of like paper mache things, which is definitely not the look we're going for. So when I found this deer statue for just $3, there was a little bit of damage, and the overall color of the gold just felt a little bit gaudy. So I decided to go in with a more champagne colored spray paint that just kind of neutralized it a bit. Another deer statue that I found last year was this really beautiful iron candle holder. I plan on putting this on my credenza table with some trees. Gorgeous, and was just $15.99. And last but not least, this year, not thrifted, but I found this kind of deer bust candle holder that looks so similar to the one from our house. I also found these Restoration Hardware candles for $1. If you see this deer bust at your local Marshalls or Home Goods, make sure you pick it up because I have a feeling it will sell out. To making these white ribbon ornaments inspired by something I saw on Pottery Barn's website. These ornaments were the most expensive on Pottery Barn's website, and they were $19.50 a piece. Now these ornaments are much larger in scale than mine are, so do keep that in mind. The first thing I did was I found, again, a bag of clear ornaments for just $2, as well as some smaller white ribbon that I will use for the top piece in order to hang it. So I did find these pearls at the Dollar Tree, as well as this white ribbon at the Dollar Tree, and that is what we will be filling these ornaments with. In order to keep it somewhat consistent, I did decide to cut my ribbon sections off at the same section every single time, so that way at least the same amount of fabric would be in there, even if it did decide to lay a little bit differently each time. And then I just evenly distributed one bag of pearls per each ornament, and then capped them off with the original caps that these ones came with, as silver was the color of the caps from the Pottery Barn inspiration as well. And then it's just time to wrap it up. Like I said, I'm going to be using ribbon from now on when I'm hanging ornaments from my tree to get that really high-end look, and these are how they turned out. One thing that I really love that Pottery Barn carries during the holiday season are their festive dinnerware. So I love these plates, love the mugs. They're always so gorgeous, but I ended up finding a set of 2 of these at the thrift store, each just 50 cents a piece. And I'm actually just going to make an ornament out of it. So if ever you find a piece of decor that you really like at the thrift store, if it's small enough, maybe consider making it into an ornament just to give it a fun festive flair. The ribbon actually came from the bells in the first DIY project, and that really wrapped up this project. I love the sort of unexpectedness and just kind of thinking outside the box in projects like these, so I hope this inspired you to also try something new. One of the things I liked the most when I was shopping around and getting inspiration at Crate & Barrel was just kind of how easygoing everything seemed. It was just a green candle with some faux snow and a hurricane vase, and I think those are all things that you can either DIY or find at your thrift store. For example, I found this hurricane vase at the thrift store for $2. We're just gonna do that faux snow trick with some Epsom salt and some crystal beads again, and then I found that green pillar candle for just 30 cents at the thrift store. So this makes it a super affordable project. If I were to buy all of these components through Crate & Barrel, I would be spending about $50, but instead I spent, I think, about $5. Because that's the goal, right? We want the high-end look, but on a budget. Another hurricane vase I was really happy to come across, but this was several months ago that I found this one, and I purposefully bought it. I wanted to save it for Christmas. It's originally from Z Gallery, just under $50, but I only paid $5 for it. I was so happy when I pulled it out because honestly, I forgot that I had picked this up, and I think that this is a large scale piece. It occupies a lot of space. It fits in with my color palette, and it is so budget friendly. And you can definitely use the battery operated candles, but I just prefer the flame you get from a real candle. I think you get a more luxurious look in the end. One thing I'm always looking for when I'm out thrifting to kind of replicate this high-end look is cedar or juniper garland, because that is what is so trendy right now, and usually at the thrift store, that's just not what you're gonna come across. But on a fresh cart, I had found this cedar garland for just $3, and I was so excited when I found it. I think that you can honestly never have too much garland. You can frame your windows, your hallways, your fireplace. There's a place for it everywhere in your space for the holiday season, so if you see it, make sure you scoop it up. For this year, I added a black bow to this garland, and then while I was at the Goodwill, I came across a set of 3 of these cedar garlands here. Now I'm going to remove some of the berries and sprigs that they have, but I think this is going to be perfect for fireplace styling. I know I already shared these from CB2 with you, but I kind of wanted to try a different method of doing this. So I also made a set of 6 of these kind. So in order to get this kind of more subdued look where the swirls aren't so evident, I decided I was going to try adding paint on the inside of the clear ornaments instead. So the first thing I did was I added my light color, which is Warm Buff by Apple Barrel. The black paint I used actually just came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to dilute these ever so slightly just so they're a bit more runny. To the black paint, I did add this gold leaf paint that I've had in my stash for a while now, and I'm gonna mix those two together just to give a sort of like shimmery black quality, so it is a little bit metallic still in the end. After I was able to achieve a more runny consistency with both colors, it's just time now to fill it inside the ornament. And the reason I really did this was because I wanted that still shiny exterior, almost like a true marble would be. So I first started off by adding the darker color, which is that metallic-y black, and after I was able to fill it up just a little bit, I swirled that color around the inside of the ornament. And there is a translucency to that, but once you continue to add the rest of your colors, it starts to kind of fill itself in more. So then I'm just going to take the lighter of the 2 colors and add that color in, and again, kind of swirl it around. Once I realize that the ornament is completely covered in paint, I then flip it upside down and I let the excess kind of just fall out. I usually just leave it there until the drips kind of stop, and then you just want to flip it right side up so you can allow the air to kind of get to it in order for it to totally dry. I ended up spray painting the caps of these ones black, again to give it that much more modern effect, and this was the end result. I saw this really cool hack on TikTok where you could take ornaments that you're not using this year and just buy a pack of balloons, cut the top off of the balloon, and then wrap it around the ornament, and then just attach your cap. add some thrifted ribbon as a means to hang it, and I think you have a really affordable way to kind of change up your look every single year, but on a budget. If nothing else, I'm gonna strongly encourage you guys to pick up your ribbon at the thrift store because you can find brand new, never used ribbon that is so beautiful. I love plaid, so I decided to take that $4 huge pack of ribbon and just kind of embellish my tree with it. For the skinny kind of dainty ribbon, I like to use it to hang ornaments, but I found these bells on Amazon actually, and I wanted to make just like a little wall hanging or an embellishment that I could place on this very rustic ladder that my sister-in-law gave me. And to place above it, I'm just going to take this wreath that I picked up from IKEA a few years ago after Christmas, and I'm just going to embellish that a little bit further with some additional ribbon. And I think this shows you there's so many uses for ribbon. It's not just for presents, you can use them in so many different capacities. Another way you could use ribbon is to make it into a bow pillow. So to start, I grabbed 2 placemats from the Dollar Tree, and we are going to make a Christmas lumbar pillow. But to make it a little bit extra, we're going to make it into the shape of a bow. So I just, to make matters easy, you could obviously sew this, but I just wanted to just make it quick and easy, decided to use some hot glue in this case, putting the good sides facing together, again, bad sides facing out, leaving one side open, turning it now right side out, so that way I can fill it. I have this pillow here that I wasn't actively using. Any kind of polyfill that you can get your hands on is perfect for this type of a project. So I just filled it until it was pretty well full. I wanted to give it a little bit of leeway there because I knew I was going to be cinching the middle. So I just, again, hot glued that side down there, and then taking this red ribbon that I thrifted and just kind of cinching that middle section there. So if you have just any lumbar pillow and you want to do this technique, take some thick ribbon that kind of color coordinates with your existing pillow, and you have an immediate, more festive look for your couch styling. The next project is the cedar wall hanging. So for this, you have really minimal supplies, but it does make a really beautiful impact in your space. So to start, I just took some twine and I wrapped that around a branch that I had disinfected with an alcohol scrub. So I can link that down in the description box for you guys, but anytime you bring anything from the outside in, you just wanna make sure that you're using something that's alcohol based to kill any sort of little friendly critters that might be existing on them. And then it was just time now to take my cedar clippings, and I'm just going to attach these with hot glue. If you don't want to use hot glue in this case, you could obviously use twine, or you could use floral tape, floral wire, whatever you have on hand is, I'm sure, fine. And I'm just kind of placing them in the same direction so that they can kind of cascade down. Another idea, if you wanted to make this a little bit more functional, you could add some sort of hooks or clips, or if you don't have a fireplace, this would be an area I would say you could maybe add your stockings. This idea could be kind of transformed and translated into so many different ways, but this is a great starting off point and adds a lot of nature to your space. The next idea is to take a canvas gift bag. This was one that my mom had gifted me several Christmases ago and decided to turn it into a Christmas pillow that following year. So all I did was I took a pillow I already had on hand, and then I filled the canvas bag. And what's nice about projects like these are 3 of the 4 sides are done. So all I did was I simply hot glued the top down together, and that really wraps up this project. It's a way to add some festiveness into your space on a budget. To make a holiday pin board, I think that this is a really easy way to get some customization into your space on a budget. So you'll need a cork board and some sort of a frame that's an interesting shape. I think the oval frame is really starting to be kind of trendy right now. So that's something you can usually find at the thrift store, even if you don't like the art, all the better, because you're going to transform it anyway. To cover the cork board, you'll just want to choose some fabric that you feel like is festive and seasonal. So I cut the cork board down to the appropriate size, and then I'm just going to simply cover it in this plaid fabric. So this was a really kind of like rustic project, which worked really well for the theme I was going with that specific year. Before gluing the fabric down to the cork board, I then just ironed it. I placed the cork board on top of the fabric, and then I simply just wrapped it around To attach it, I actually didn't use my staple gun. I just used some hot glue. I spray painted the frame in this beautiful matte black color and added this little leather detail to the back to hang it, just to give it a little something extra. I think this is great for displaying holiday pictures or Christmas cards, whatever it may be, and it only cost $7 to make. If you guys have been following me for a while, you'll know that I love a good vintage moment in my space. So when I saw this holly berry plate, I thought this would be perfect for a candle project. So I grabbed 4 of these caps here, and these came from the hardware store. And we are simply just going to glue these down to the plate so that way we can put our candles inside and maybe even add a candle snuffer on top of it. So I just hot glued these. You could super glue these or E6000 these down, whichever way you feel is best, I think is the way to go. So I just kind of spaced them out as evenly as I could. I didn't measure anything. I kind of just wanted it to feel really organic. The only thing I plan on changing for this year is changing the color of the candles, but otherwise super simple project and very affordable. If you aren't necessarily into the greenery like wreaths and you want something that's a bit flashier, this might be a good wreath to try. So I grabbed one of the wreath form packs from the Dollar Tree, and we are basically just going to slide on as many bells as we feel like is necessary, and I'm just going to attach the wire that I cut in order to slide the bells on with some floral wire. And that is going to serve a couple purposes, because I wanted that internal ring just to add a little bit more interest there. Again, if you remember from a previous project, I found that huge bag of red ribbon for almost nothing, and that is going to kind of be what holds it on the door. So I just wanted to add a little bit of something in addition to the bow, so I decided to grab these little fern picks, and I just simply glued those around just to give it a little bit something extra. And that really wrapped up this wreath project. This was super easy to create and so budget friendly. Stocking holders and stockings are one of those things that weirdly get really expensive, and it's always because you have to buy multiples of the same thing. So I always like to find kind of a cheaper alternative. So when I saw these deer at the Dollar Tree, I grabbed a 35-cent tile. I super glued the legs and the feet of this deer down to the tile, and then I'm just going to first go in with some stone spray paint just to give it a little bit of texture to both the tile and the deer. When that dried, I went in with some black spray paint over top of it, and then finished it off by just dusting a little bit more of that stone spray paint on top just to give it a little bit more dimension. And you could take this in so many different ways. You could make it like a kind of distressed brass project, whatever you wanted. I would just make sure that it matches your actual stocking holder. I was definitely in my plaid girl era last Christmas, so I wanted to make some plaid stockings. So I grabbed 2 placemats from the Dollar Tree and then a stocking just so I would have the general kind of silhouette of what a stocking looks like. And then leaving about 1 inch around, I'm going to kind of trace it out and place the good sides facing together, bad sides facing out. And then I'm simply just going to glue around the inside all around so that way it's going to be nice and secure when I flip it right side out. So that's the general idea there. Now for the top part, I needed to use 1 stocking to kind of give it this faux fur effect that I was seeing a lot of on Pottery Barn and Crate & Barrel's website. So I'm just going to glue that down, and then I'm just going to glue the end there. And what's nice is it kind of disguises where you cut, because I don't need all of that fabric, but the faux fur does a nice job of just kind of hiding that imperfection there. All that was left to do now is add a means to hang it. So I just had this suede ribbon on hand, tied it in a knot, and then glued that to the inside of the stocking. And this was the end result. On high-end home decor websites, you'll see a lot of references to deer, especially around the fall and winter months. So when I saw these ornaments at the Dollar Tree, I decided this might make an interesting set of wall hooks for the holiday season. So one of the antlers broke off, so I just simply had to glue that back on. But I decided that I was going to attach these kind of stag heads onto The trickiest part of this was just trying to make sure that they were as equally distanced apart as possible. It was kind of difficult to measure just because they're kind of an organic shape. So once that part was kind of complete, I really didn't like that you could see this little gap at the bottoms of each of where I connected them to the wood. So I first went in with some white spray paint, and then that just further intensified the gaps. So then I went in with plaster just to seal it off and make it look like it was one solid piece. I did several coats of that white and plaster mix until it was completely covered, and all that was left to do was hang it on the wall. As I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite things Crate & Barrel does are their faux floral arrangements. I love this poinsettia arrangement. It's $129, and I thought we could definitely come up with something from the thrift store that's a whole lot less. I came across this bundle for just $2, and then I was looking for a white kind of ceramic glossy vase, but I couldn't find one. So I ended up opting for a sort of fishbowl style of a clear vase, and we are just going to take some gloss white spray paint, and we're only gonna spray the inside of the vase because I still wanted it to have that really nice shiny sheen on the exterior, but I wanted the inside color to be white, if that makes sense. I ended up doing 3 really light coats of the gloss white spray paint just to make sure everything was really well covered, and then I sealed it as well. I brought it inside once it had dried, and then now it was just time to add our faux florals. I trimmed each floral stem down to the appropriate size, and for just $3, I think I have a really similar look on a budget. Kind of like the stocking holder, you could also do the same thing and make a recipe card holder. Simply do the same thing, take a bell, flip it upside down. I added a combination of super glue gel as well as some hot glue to make sure that it was extra secure on that tile there. And what's now been created is basically like a slit, so you could put a name tag there for where people will be sitting, or you could also, like I mentioned, use it as a recipe card holder. And I think that this is just a nice way to add some festiveness into your kitchen styling, especially if you do a lot of baking or cooking in general. And what is even better is it only cost a few dollars. Next up was making a faux fur wreath, and this idea I believe came from Crate & Barrel or CB2, and for this project I just went to the Dollar Tree and I grabbed one white scarf, and I also grabbed one of the green wreath forms. All I'm going to simply do is wrap the wreath form around with this scarf. Once I secured it down with some hot glue, I wanted to just add a few embellishments like I had seen at CB2, and that was just to add some pearls to the front of this wreath form. So I simply just hot glued those in place. I think this is a really nice way to get this kind of luxe, glammy look for Christmas if that is your aesthetic you're trying to achieve. If you're interested in making some wood trees from the Dollar Tree, this is a really easy option. So you want to start off by just taking 3 of these triangle frames that you can find in the framing section of Dollar Tree, as well as 2 of these wooden pencil cups. So all I needed to do was remove the backs of each one of these frames because I wanted the trees to be hollow. If you didn't want them to be hollow and you wanted to leave that part there, I would suggest maybe making the pattern more festive inspired. Because there was some residue from removing the back sections there, I just simply sanded off those kind of rough spots so you wouldn't see it from the front. So one of the triangles is already fine, but the other one I needed to remove the top section there so I would be able to connect the bottom. So I just simply used my miter saw in this case. You could use a miter box if you don't have a miter saw. This wood is pretty easy to work with. And then all I needed to do is just hot glue those pieces together. And then this is how it turned out. I thought it was just the perfect kind of just Scandi inspired neutral look that is perfect for any shelf or dresser styling. Hanging sleigh bells are one of those just kind of traditional Christmas pieces of decor, but you can definitely customize it to make it fit your aesthetic better. So they carry these every year, at least they have for the last several years at the Dollar Tree. And basically what you're getting is like the natural silhouette of what you need, because this is supposed to go on a door. So I'm just going to kind of unravel all of what existed with the sleigh bells and add more bells and kind of more natural materials, which will just obviously make it look a little bit more high-end and a little bit more expensive. So I'm going to take this jute cording and I'm going to wrap it all around the part that it is going to go around the door handle. And then I'm going to connect each one of the bells using twine as well. Next up is the faux fir tree. So they carry these kind of like tinsely trees at the Dollar Tree, and they carry them every year. And again, we're just going to remove that kind of cheapy part, but you're left with this kind of tree-like shape. So you can add essentially whatever you want on here, but I decided to take a few of these white faux fur scarves at the Dollar Tree and wrap it around to get this kind of crate and barrel or CB2-like look that I was seeing a lot of that specific year. I ended up needing about 2 scarves for this project. I started gluing at the top and then just kind of worked my way around. What was nice is that I was able to kind of tuck in the excess inside because it was hollow, and that really wrapped up this project. This was super simple to create and cost under $5 for a faux fir tree. So of course you can go the route of going to Hobby Lobby, spending $14.99 on a sign that says Merry Christmas. Or you could go through your stash, and I'm sure you have some Christmas cards or some wrapping paper or a gift bag lying around that you could frame that could make some really beautiful artwork. If you do not have a DIY bone in your body, I'm pretty sure anybody could do this, especially if you're on a budget. This is one way to save a couple bucks. Next up is to make a eucalyptus wreath. So I really loved this wreath because it was a nice transitional piece from fall into the holiday season. So I ended up taking this red eucalyptus that I had on hand. I cut the wreath form down about halfway and then all of the prongs in the middle. And I just kind of situated them in almost like an arch-like shape. Once I secured them down with some floral wire, I then added the suede ribbon to the top so I could hang it from a nail on my wall. Then it was just time to make sure the center was super secure, as most of the stems were pointing in that direction. And to cover that area, I went in with this ribbon here. So in the future, actually, I think this year, I still have this wreath and I love it a lot. I think I'm going to switch the red out just because it's a little bit too pink for me. So the only thing I'm really going to switch out, or swap out rather, is add some green eucalyptus instead for this year. Okay, so next up is another kind of free idea. If you have a frame in your basement, in your attic, and you're not using it, I think it can make a really beautiful display if you want to hang up your Christmas cards. So I found this frame at a garage sale that summer and it was completely free, but my mom wanted the artwork, so I was left with this frame. So I just took some twine that I had on hand and I added some glue so that way the twine would be nice and secure. Grabbed these clothespins from my stash, and that really wrapped up this project. So I may decide to add a bow to the top of this for this year, but otherwise this is ready to go year after year, and it cost me basically nothing. The next project was inspired by something I had seen on Pottery Barn's website, and that was just some pine cones in a bowl, but it was weirdly expensive. So I thought for sure I'd be able to replicate something similar for a whole lot less. So I grabbed a cup from the Dollar Tree as well as a white bowl, and I just hot glued those two pieces together. If I was to do this project today, I would add super glue gel as well, just for an extra secure hold. I then took it outside and I sprayed the whole thing down with some gold spray paint. If I was to do this project today, I would add a layer of metallic oil rubbed bronze and black and just kind of distress it a bit further. But then I just added a combination of pine cones from outside as well as some scented pine cones from the Dollar Tree. I added some sprigs of greenery, and this is how this project turned out. I think it looks really similar to the inspiration, but it was definitely so budget friendly. Another decor item that I loved from Pottery Barn was this bell candle, and I have seen similar things on other websites for less, but it still won't cost less than it was to make it. I started out by spray painting the exterior of the bowls in that gold color, and then I also melted down the wax of those 2 candles there from the Dollar Tree. I saved the wicks from those so that way I would be able to use them for this project. You can of course buy wicks separately, but I figured I might as well use what I have. Simply wrapped that around a kebab stick and added some hot glue so it stayed nice and in place, and then poured the wax inside until it solidified. For the handle portion, I found this clay also at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to shape it to kind of be like a handle you would see on a bell. If I was going to do this project today, I would probably use something else, like maybe half of a bracelet or a wooden ring cut in half. The clay was fine, but I just still noticed that there were some imperfections on it, and it always bothered me. Once I cut the handle though down to the appropriate size, I then just glued that down to the bottom of one of the bowls and trimmed the wick, and this was the end result. I think I do have a somewhat similar look to what I had seen at Pottery Barn, but so much more budget friendly. And last but certainly not least is an antler candle holder. So this inspiration came from Pottery Barn, and I knew I would be able to create something similar for a lot less. So I grabbed a hurricane vase as well as a pillar candle from the Dollar Tree, and my husband's stepfather so graciously sent us all of these antlers because he knew that I was definitely in a rustic era, and I decided to glue those around the hurricane vase and add the pillar candle inside. And it's definitely a similar look, but did not cost almost $100. And that about wraps it up for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know which project or find was your favorite. I think no matter what your budget is this holiday season, there are always ways to save, and I hope that if nothing else, this video left you feeling inspired. I hope to see you guys next Sunday for a very exciting decorating video. Bye for now.